What happens when a former president strolls onto a late-night set expecting softballs and instead gets the fiercest cross-examination of his public life? And tonight, we're unpacking the on-air blow-up that sent security rushing to the footlights and left the crowd stunned into silence. This is the story of how Donald Trump got kicked off Stephen Colbert's show. And trust me, you haven't seen anything like this. Tap that subscribe button and drop a comment with what you think really went down that night. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was supposed to be a routine media tour stop. Trump agreed to the appearance expecting the usual celebrity treatment he'd grown used to on talk shows. But Colbert had other plans. The former president settled into the guest chair, straightened his red tie, and flashed that familiar grin at the studio audience. Colbert's face stayed stone still. "So let's jump right in," Colbert said, voice slicing through the polite applause. "You've made some bold claims about the election. Want to explain those to our viewers?" Trump leaned back, comfortable, clearly anticipating this. Stephen. Look, everybody knows what happened. The numbers don't lie, except when they do, if you know what I mean. The American people deserve the truth, and that's what I've been giving them. The truth. Colbert's eyebrow ticked up. Multiple courts, including judges you appointed, found no evidence of widespread fraud. So which truth are we talking about here? The audience shifted, and Trump's smile thinned. Those judges didn't want to look at the evidence. They were scared, frankly. Scared of what they'd find. But I'm not scared of the truth, Stephen. Are you? I'm not the one making extraordinary claims without extraordinary evidence. Colbert shot back, his voice tightening. Let's move on. Your relationships with world leaders particularly. Vladimir Putin. Why have you consistently praised a man who invaded a sovereign nation? Trump's face reddened. He adjusted himself in the chair more forcefully. Putin is a strong leader. Okay. You can disagree with someone and still respect their strength. Obama was weak. Biden is weak. But Putin, he's a chess player. I understand chess players. So you respect the strength it takes to bomb hospitals and target civilians. Colbert's voice turned razor sharp. The room went quiet. Now wait just a minute. Trump snapped, jabbing a finger at Colbert. You're twisting my words just like the fake news always does. I never said I support what he's doing. I said he's strong. There's a difference, Stephen. Though I don't expect you to understand nuance. Nuance. Colbert leaned in, eyes locked. Is that what you call it? When you praised Putin as a genius for invading Ukraine? Because I've got the quote right here, if you'd like me to read it. You know your problem. Stephen. Trump's voice rose as his gestures grew broader. You've got Trump derangement syndrome. You can't see straight because you hate me. It's sad. Really sad. What's sad, Colbert replied, is a former president who can't answer a simple question about why he praises dictators. Let's try another topic, your handling of classified documents. Can you explain to our viewers why boxes of classified material were kept at your resort? The question landed like a thunderclap. Trump flushed from red to near purple, gripping the chair arms. Those documents were mine. Presidential records. Okay, I declassified them with my mind. I have that power as president. You declassified them with your mind. Colbert's incredulity bled through. Is that how classification works? Because I'm pretty sure there's an actual process. I don't need to explain the process to you. Trump snapped. You wouldn't understand it anyway. You're a comedian who thinks he knows national security. Stick to your little jokes. The tension was now visible. Producers shifted nervously behind the cameras, but Colbert refused to let up. Speaking of jokes, let's revisit your claim that the FBI planted evidence at Mar-a-Lago. Do you have any proof of that? Proof? Trump laughed bitterly. The proof is they found documents I declassified. Case closed. They won't admit they're wrong, so they make up stories about planting evidence. But you just said the documents were yours and declassified Colbert pressed. If they're legitimately yours and already declassified, how could they be planted? Trump stalled, mouth opening, closing before he muttered, "You're trying to confuse me with your liberal lawyer tricks, Stephen. But I'm too smart for that." "I'm not trying to confuse you," Colbert said evenly. "I'm trying to get a straight answer. Just one straight answer to one simple question. Can you do that for the viewers?" "I've been giving straight answers all night," Trump burst out, half rising. "You keep twisting everything because you're part of the establishment. You're part of the swamp." The audience murmured as the outburst echoed. Colbert stayed seated, voice calm but firm. "Sir, please sit and lower your voice. We're having a conversation." "Don't tell me what to do." Trump snapped. "I'm a former president of the United States. I don't take orders from a late-night comedian who couldn't make it in real entertainment." Colbert's jaw tightened. "Real entertainment? Is that what you call inciting an insurrection?" "Let's talk about your role on January 6th. Oh, here we go." Trump threw his hands up. January 6th. January 6th. That's all you people talk about. It was a peaceful protest that got out of hand. I told people to be peaceful. You told people to fight like hell, or they wouldn't have a country anymore. Colbert countered. "That's not exactly a call for peace. Fight like hell is a figure of speech, Stephen. Politicians use it all the time. But when I say it suddenly, it's incitement. The double standard is incredible." The double standard. Colbert's voice climbed. 5 people died. 140 officers were injured. How is that peaceful? Trump stood fully. Now his face contorted. Those officers were fine. Some took selfies with the protesters. You're spreading fake news on your own show. "Sit down, please," Colbert said. Also standing. "We need to maintain decorum." "Decorum." Trump barked a harsh laugh. "You ambushed me with a hit job. This isn't an interview. It's a prosecution." The audience buzzed. Security edged closer to the wings, waiting. "I'm asking the questions any journalist should ask." Colbert cut through the noise. "If that feels like prosecution, maybe ask yourself why the questions make you so uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable," Trump's voice cracked. "I'm not uncomfortable. Stephen, I'm disgusted. Disgusted by what passes for journalism. You're not a journalist. You're an activist. And you're not answering the questions." Colbert fired back. "Not one. You deflect, attack, blame everyone else, but you never answer." Trump pointed straight at Colbert's face. "I don't have to answer to you. I don't have to answer to anyone. I'm Donald Trump." The room erupted, shouting from both sides. The carefully controlled late-night bubble dissolved into something like a misfired rally. Security Colbert called over the din. Guards stepped onto the stage, and the crowd quieted a notch. "No one calls security on Donald Trump." Trump bellowed, his voice carrying. "I'll leave when I'm ready." Colbert raised a hand to the guards to hold. "You know what? Let him stay. Let's finish. America deserves to see this." The audience sensed something unprecedented and hushed. Trump, surprised, eased back into his seat, still defiant. "Fine," he muttered, straightening his jacket. "But no more gotcha questions. Ask something real." "Something real," Colbert echoed, sitting and never breaking eye contact. "Okay. Why do so many people you hired, people you called the best, say you're unfit for office?" Trump laughed, bitter and sharp. "Because they're jealous. Stephen, jealous of my success, my popularity. When you're as successful as I am, you make enemies." John Kelly. Your own chief of staff called you a threat to democracy, James Mattis, whom you praised, said you're divisive. These are lifelong Republicans. Are they all jealous? Kelly was a failed general. Failed. Mattis was overrated. I picked them because I thought they had potential, and they disappointed me. They couldn't handle working for a winner. So everyone who criticizes you is a failure, Colbert said, leaning back. Everyone who praises you is brilliant. Don't you see a pattern? The pattern is weak. People can't handle strength, Trump said, voice dripping condescension. They can't handle someone who fights back and won't bow to the establishment. Is that what you call refusing to accept election results? Fighting back? Colbert asked. Because it looks a lot like refusing to accept reality. Trump's fist slammed the chair arm. The crack echoed. There you go again, the election. You want reality. I got more votes than any sitting president in history, and Joe Biden got more votes than any candidate in history. Colbert replied evenly. That's how he won. Impossible votes. Trump shot back. Dead people voting multiple times. Machines switching votes. But you don't want to hear that it doesn't fit your narrative. Show me the evidence, Colbert said. Right here, right now. One piece of concrete evidence. Trump pulled out his phone. I've got it right here. Thousands of affidavits, video clips, statistical impossibilities. Then show us. Colbert challenged. Put it on the screen. Let America see the evidence 60 courts couldn't find. Trump hesitated, thumb hovering. The room grew so quiet the cameras seemed loud. Finally, he pocketed the phone. I'm not doing your research. If you cared about truth, you'd look it up. I have Colbert said momentum building. I've read decisions, seen recounts. Watched your own attorney general say there was no fraud. So either they're all lying or you are. Bill Barr was a coward. Trump exploded. He feared the deep state, the media people like you. He should have fought harder. Or maybe Colbert said slowly, he told you the truth, and you didn't want to hear it. Maybe losing an election isn't the end of the world. Maybe it's democracy doing what it's supposed to. Trump stood again, this time, controlled, but seething. Democracy. What about censorship, big tech, silencing conservatives, the FBI interfering in elections? You're blending a lot of things, Colbert said, still seated. Let's focus. You say big tech censored you. Didn't you violate their terms by spreading misinformation? Misinformation? Trump nearly shrieked. Everything I said was true. When truth is inconvenient to your side, you label it misinformation. The truth about what specifically? Everything. The election, the virus, the vaccines, Hunter's laptop, the Russia hoax. Everything I said turned out right. The Russia investigation led to multiple convictions, Colbert replied. How is that a hoax? Process crimes, Stephen? They couldn't find real crimes, so they made up process crimes. That's what they do. Paul Manafort was convicted of tax and bank fraud. Colbert said, those aren't process crimes. Manafort's issues had nothing to do with me or my campaign. They were from years before. You people always skip that part, don't you? The back and forth had turned relentless. The audience watched riveted as the conversation felt like America's political discourse cracking in real time. Let's talk about your legal troubles, Colbert pressed. 4 indictments in 4 jurisdictions. Are all those prosecutors out to get you too? They're all Democrats, Stephen. Every single one. This is lawfare, using the legal system to stop me from running again. Some of those prosecutors are Republicans, Colbert said, and grand juries are citizens, not politicians. Citizens in Democrat cities reading Democrat papers, watching Democrat shows like yours. They're brainwashed. So the entire justice system is rigged against you, Judges, juries, prosecutors, all part of a massive conspiracy. Now you're getting it, Trump said, oblivious to how paranoid he sounded. It's the biggest witch hunt in political history, bigger than what they did to Lincoln. Colbert blinked. What they did to Lincoln? Are you comparing yourself to Abraham Lincoln? I'm saying we've both been persecuted by enemies. Lincoln had critics too. Lincoln was assassinated, Colbert said quietly. You're facing legal proceedings in a country with due process. Same principle. Trump waved him off. They're trying to destroy me because I represent what they hate about America. What exactly do you represent? Strength, success, the will to fight the establishment, the courage to speak truth to power. And what does that make everyone who disagrees with you? Trump paused, as if seriously considering for the first time that night. Enemies of the people. Stephen. Plain and simple. The words hung like a toxic cloud. A few audience members gasped. Even security shifted uneasily. Enemies of the people, Colbert repeated. For disagreeing with you. For lying about me. For trying to destroy the country I love. For putting their power above America. And who decides who the enemies are? You, the American people, decide, Stephen. And they've decided. That's why I'm leading in all the polls. Some polls, Colbert corrected. And polls aren't votes. We learned that in 2016, and again in 2020. Trump's patience finally snapped. You know what, Stephen, I'm done. This isn't an interview, it's an ambush. Fake news in real time. He began to stand, but Colbert's next words pinned him. If you walk out, you prove my point. You can't handle tough questions. You can dish it out, but you can't take it. Trump froze, mid-rise emotions flashing across his face. Pride, anger, confusion, maybe fear. You think I can't take it? He said, voice dangerously quiet. I think you've been surrounded by yes-men so long, you've forgotten what real pushback feels like. Trump sank back into the chair, eyes fixed on Colbert. Okay, Stephen, you want hardball? Let's play hardball. The room's energy shifted. A standard late-night interview had morphed into a psychological showdown. Trump's eyes gleamed. He settled in with a predator's stillness. Colbert's usual comic ease gave way to a steely, investigative focus. Hardball it is, Colbert murmured. Let's talk family. Your children have been deeply involved in your business, your campaigns, even your administration. How do you justify putting them at risk for your political ambitions? Trump went rigid. You leave my family out of this, Stephen. Is it off limits? Colbert asked. You put them front and center. Don Jr. campaigning Eric, running your business. Ivanka in the White House. Public figures are fair game. They're my children, Trump roared, spittle catching the lights. You don't go after someone's kids. I'm not attacking them, Colbert said. I'm asking about your decision to involve them. Don't they deserve normal lives, instead of living inside constant controversy? Trump's breathing turned heavy, his heaving. My children are strong fighters like their father. They can handle anything. Can they handle federal investigations, death? Threats, every move scrutinized because of choices you made. That's not my fault, Trump shouted, voice cracking. That's people like you who won't leave us alone. We are patriots, Stephen. We love this country. If you love the country, Colbert's question cut cleanly. Why try to overturn an election, its most fundamental democratic process? Trump lurched to his feet so hard, the chair rolled and nearly toppled. I didn't try to destroy anything. I tried to save it. I tried to save democracy from people stealing it by pressuring state officials to find votes that didn't exist. By asking your vice president to reject electoral votes. By sending an angry mob to the Capitol. I never sent anybody anywhere. Trump shot back, pacing and windmilling his hands. They went on their own. I told them to be peaceful. After you told them the election was stolen. After you told them to fight like hell. After you warned their country was being taken from them. What did you think would happen? Trump spun to face him, purple with rage. I thought they'd peacefully protest. Make their voices heard. By breaking into the Capitol, by threatening to hang Mike Pence, by forcing Congress to evacuate. That's peaceful. I didn't know they'd do that, Trump cried, edging toward hysteria. How could I know what a few bad actors would do? Because you've been inciting violence for years, Colbert said coldly. Stand back and stand by. Very fine people on both sides. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. You've dog-whistled to extremists since day one. All lies. Trump screamed the word, ricocheting off the walls. The media twisted every line. You took everything out of context. What context makes telling the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by acceptable? Trump opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time all night, he looked bereft of words. I'll tell you the context, he finally rasped. A president trying to keep the peace while violent leftist riots wreck American cities. We're talking about your supporters storming the Capitol, Colbert said. And you're blaming the left. Everything bad gets pinned on my supporters. But when Antifa burns buildings, it's mostly peaceful. The double standard is incredible. We're not talking about other riots, Colbert said. We're talking about your riot, the one that happened because you convinced people the election was stolen. It was stolen. Stephen Trump snapped, pointing hard. Deep down you know it. Everyone knows it. The evidence is overwhelming. Then why couldn't you prove it in court? Colbert asked. Why did 60 judges, including your appointees, reject your claims? Because the courts are corrupt. The whole system is corrupt. The deep state, the media, the politicians, every one of them. Colbert rose slowly, voice turning grave. So everyone is lying except you. Every judge, every election official, every journalist, all part of a massive conspiracy against Donald Trump. Yes, Trump shouted, almost triumphant. Finally, you get it. It's the biggest conspiracy in world history. Or, Colbert said quietly, you lost an election and can't accept it. The silence landed like a sandbag. Trump's mouth hung open, eyes wide. I don't lose, Stephen, he whispered. Winners don't lose. I'm a winner. Everyone loses sometimes. It's part of being human. Not me, Trump said, nearly inaudible. For a flicker he looked vulnerable. I can't lose. If I lose, everything falls apart. Everything I've built. Everything I am. Maybe that's the problem, Colbert said gently. Maybe you built your identity around never being wrong, never admitting mistakes, never showing weakness. That's not strength. That's fragility. Whatever softness had surfaced vanished. Trump snapped back to fury. Don't psychoanalyze me. You're not qualified. You're a failed comedian who couldn't make it in movies. And you're a failed president who couldn't accept defeat with dignity. The words hit like a slap. Trump went white, then red, then purple. He started to hyperventilate, hands trembling. Failed president. I was the greatest in history. Better than Lincoln. Better than Washington. I saved this country. You divided this country. Colbert shot back. You turned Americans against one another. You normalized lying. You normalized corruption. I exposed corruption. Trump howled. I showed people the establishment's rot. You became the corruption, Colbert replied. You used the presidency to enrich yourself and your ego. You turned the White House into a reality show. Trump shook uncontrollably now. His carefully arranged hair was mussed, his tie skewed. You don't know anything. I gave up everything for this country. You gave up nothing, Colbert countered. You made millions foreign dignitaries at your hotels, Air Force crews at your resorts. Trump lunged forward finger inches from Colbert's face. You're nothing, Stephen. A nobody who thinks he can judge me. I'm Donald Trump. I'm famous. I'm powerful. And yet here you are, Colbert replied calmly, unflinching, screaming at a late-night comedian. Because he asked you tough questions. Something seemed to buckle in Trump. His fury sagged into something like despair. They all ask tough questions now, he said hollowly. It used to be easier. People used to respect the office. They respected the office when the occupant respected it back. Because I didn't lose Trump, suddenly snapped rage roaring back. I won by a landslide. Everyone knows it. He moved toward Colbert, menacing, and the security team finally stepped forward. Sir, you need to calm down, one guard said firmly. Don't touch me. Trump whirled. Nobody touches Donald Trump. I'll sue this network. I'll sue this show. Escort him out. Colbert said quietly. You can't throw me out. Trump shrieked as the guards closed in. I'm the guest. I'm the star. People tune in for me, not you. Not anymore, Colbert said. Those two words shattered what composure Trump had left. As security guided him toward the exit, gently but decisively, he kept ranting. This is election interference. This is a setup. You'll hear from my lawyers. His voice faded behind the curtain, leaving the studio in a stunned hush. Colbert straightened his tie, ran a hand through his hair, and looked into the camera. Well, that happened, he said. Applause erupted some, standing some frozen in disbelief. He waited it out. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just witnessed something unprecedented, he said. When the room calmed, a former president of the United States, unable to handle basic questions about his record being removed from a talk show for refusing to engage in civil discourse. He paused to let the weight settle. This is what happens when accountability meets someone who's never faced it. This is what happens when reality confronts someone who's spent years crafting a personal version of truth. He looked into the lens one last time. That's our show. Subscribe and tell us in the comments. Is this kind of confrontation what America needs right now? Backstage, the scene was chaos. Security debriefed quickly. Producers whispered into headsets. The stage manager counted down the bumper. On set, the band played softly, while crew reset the furniture, righting the toppled guest chair, checking a scuff on the stage edge. A few audience members dabbed at their eyes. Others argued in hushed tones. Meanwhile, Trump paced the corridor, flanked by aides scrambling to salvage the moment. They'll pay for this, he hissed, jabbing at the air. We'll sue for defamation for breach for everything. One aide tried to calm him, reminding him the cameras were still rolling out front, and any scene backstage could leak. Trump tugged free, turned on a heel, then stopped at a monitor feeding the live show. He watched himself storm off, watched Colbert's closing line. His jaw clenched so tight the muscles twitched. On stage, Colbert tossed to commercial with a controlled smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. When the applause sign dimmed, he exhaled, rolled his shoulders, and accepted a water bottle from a stagehand. You okay? The producer asked quietly. I'm fine, he said. And he meant it mostly. Let's finish clean. He stepped back to the desk as the band leader signaled the return from break. Back from commercial, Colbert addressed the elephant in the room without re-inflaming it. "We had a lively discussion tonight," he said, the audience chuckling nervously. "We'll post the full interview online. A beat. Every minute of it." The crowd made a low, appreciative sound. Transparency promised. No selective edits implied. The show wrapped with a musical performance taped earlier, a choice made before anyone knew how the night would end. The contrast between the calm, soulful tune and the crimson-hot exchange that preceded it felt surreal. But the structure of late-night held monologue interview musical guest. Good night. The scaffolding of television remained intact, even as for a moment the culture it reflects had frayed on live TV. When the credits rolled, Colbert shook hands with the band, then walked off into the wings. The audience filtered out in clumps, some elated, some angry, many quiet. In the hallway, a security guard rubbed his temples and said to no one in particular, "I've worked concerts, playoffs, rallies. Never seen anything like that." Outside on the sidewalk, cell phone lights dotted the night as people recorded dueling recaps. "He owned him," someone said. "They set him up," someone else replied. Under the marquee, a couple held hands and argued in low tones about what the word truth even means anymore. Back in the green room, a half-eaten fruit tray and a glass of untouched seltzer sat next to a crumpled briefing card with bullet points that would never be used. A staffer took a photo for records and dropped the card in a folder marked Trump Colbert segment. Paper has a way of remembering what people would rather forget. In the control room, editors cued the footage for upload marking time codes. The first flare, the first stand-up, the security cue, the walk-off. "No cuts," the senior producer repeated. "We're posting it straight." The standard lower third would read only former President Donald Trump. No adjectives, no victory laps. Let the tape speak. Backstage, Colbert sat for a post-show debrief. "Would you do anything differently?" a producer asked. He considered. "I'd ask the same questions," he said, "maybe fewer at a time." But the same questions. He rubbed his eyes and added, "It's not supposed to be easy. None of this is." Later, alone in his dressing room, Colbert stared at his reflection for a long moment. He loosened his tie, exhaled, and finally let his shoulders drop. Then he smiled, tired but clear-eyed, and reached for his phone. A text from his wife. "You okay?" He typed back, "Yeah. Long night. Another beat. Important one." Across town, Trump rode in a black SUV, phone glowing as he scrolled reactions already flooding social media. He dictated a message to an aide, changed it mid-sentence, dictated again. By the time they reached his hotel, a statement was ready. "Biased host witch hunt. Ratings ploy lawsuit coming." The words were familiar, the cadence practiced, the feeling coiling beneath them, something tighter than anger, sharper than pride, was not. The show's official account posted the clip at midnight. Full interview uninterrupted. The views climbed by the tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. In the comments, the fight continued. Citations, slogans, links, memes. The internet did what it always does. It amplified, distorted, remembered, forgot. And in the quiet between refreshes, the question Colbert asked on camera lingered like a low hum. Is this the confrontation America needs, or just another rupture we'll spend years trying to mend? Morning headlines split along predictable lines. Some called it accountability. Others called it ambush. But for the people in the room, the details were etched in high relief. The red tie catching the studio light. The sharp intake of breath. When security stepped forward, the single moment when Trump almost sat back down of his own accord and almost answered the question without circling the wagons. Producers spent the next day fielding calls, vetting transcripts, and confirming times. The show's legal team reviewed the footage. Their note was brief, clear questions, invited guest standard safety protocols. The segment stood on its own. By noon, think pieces were already stacking up. What is the responsibility of entertainment to hold power to account? What happens when political myth-making collides with the unforgiving edges of a follow-up question? And who decides when a conversation stops being a conversation? The network's PR team drafted a measured statement. The guest was treated with respect. Questions focused on public actions and statements. Security acted only when necessary to maintain safety and decorum. Behind closed doors, executives asked the ratings question. The numbers when they landed that evening were undeniable. In private, crew members texted each other snapshots of the moment security crossed the stage line. They remembered how the studio air felt electric and thin at the same time. One wrote, "I could hear his shoes on the floor," meaning the guest's meaning the tension had a sound. And because shows must go on, Colbert wrote a new monologue for that night. He wasn't interested in gloating, only in refusing to let the previous evening swallow the present one. Still, he saved a quiet minute at the end to say what he'd said before, only steadier. Accountability isn't an ambush. It's the job. Somewhere else, Trump sat with advisors paging through cable segments and scrolling feeds. The statement he'd released fired up his base, but the raw footage complicated the narrative. The part where he called political opponents enemies of the people ricocheted the hardest it always did. He asked again whether to sue. An attorney advised caution. Discovery cuts both ways, the lawyer said. Trump scowled. Clips continued to proliferate online. The stand-up, the finger point, the not anymore. The escort. Colbert's closing words. People spliced in court quotes, graphics of timelines, screenshots of social posts. Others stripped it down to only faces. Anger, resolve, disbelief. No sound, just the look of a country arguing with itself. In the afternoon, a staffer wheeled a cart of pastries into the writer's room. No one ate much. Someone joked about adding hazard pay to late-night contracts. Laughter came easy for a second, and then faded the way it does after a storm, when you're still checking the windows for cracks. Calls came in from other shows, from advocates, from detractors. Invitations to debate, to relitigate, to cash in. The team said no to most of it. Let the tape speak, the senior producer said again. By evening, the comment thread under the episode's upload passed the 7-figure mark. Some were thoughtful. Some were not. The algorithm did what algorithms do, and the clip found every corner of the internet that wanted to find it. Back in the studio, the band warmed up. The audience filed in. The chairs were set as usual. Someone had buffed the scuff out of the stage edge. If you didn't know what happened the night before, you wouldn't see a trace. But the people who worked there saw it anyway, the way firefighters see where a blaze once ran, even after the walls are painted. When the taping began, Colbert stepped out to cheers. He let the noise settle and started with a lighter story, something about a pet parade and a mayoral proclamation. The laugh came easily enough, a relief valve cracking open. Midway through, he pivoted. Last night was a lot, he said. If you watched, thank you. If you didn't, there's a full video. Watch it. Don't take my word for it. Don't take anyone's. Watch for yourself. The audience applauded, not the roaring kind, but the respectful kind. He welcomed that night's guest, an author with a new book, and the conversation was gentle, curious, human. Toward the end, the author said, "It feels like we all want the same thing, but we're scared the other side will keep us from getting it." Colbert nodded. "Maybe we're scared we'll lose if we admit we were wrong about even one thing," he said. The audience hummed in agreement. As the credits rolled again that night, A producer handed Colbert a note with a handful of metrics. He skimmed, folded it, tucked it into his pocket. Numbers mattered to the network. What mattered to him felt simpler and heavier. Whether the questions were fair, whether the guest had every chance to answer, whether the tape would stand up years from now, stripped of slogans and spin. Across town, Trump drafted another statement. This one, longer, more detailed, studded with phrases that had served him well before. He considered a live stream to reclaim the narrative. An aide suggested a rally instead. They picked a date. In the days that followed, the clip settled into the American media sediment, as such moments do, layered over by new outrages, new jokes, new heartbreaks, and yet ready to be kicked loose by the next aftershock. Students would cite it in media studies papers. Pundits would reference it as a turning point, or nothing at all, depending on what they needed that day. The people who were there would remember the way the room felt when two men stared each other down, and the word truth hung between them like something you could see. Weeks later, a staffer found the crumpled briefing card again while cleaning a drawer. He smoothed it out and read the bullet points, safe, bland topics about travel and golf and a charitable event. What might have been. He slid the paper into a fresh sleeve and filed it away. Archives tell their own stories. Sometimes the footnotes are louder than the headline. And because a show is a show, and a country is a country, life moved forward. New guests, new arguments, new bits, new songs. The stage lights rose and fell, as regular as breathing. Somewhere, a viewer watched the episode for the first time, then texted it to a friend with a single line. You have to see this. And somewhere else, another viewer swiped past it in favor of a cat video and never thought about it again. But if you stood in that studio at midnight, when the audience finally cleared and the crew killed the last light, you could still hear it. The echo of a question that sounded like responsibility. The faint scrape of a chair that had been knocked askew and set back in place. The low memory of a line that broke a night in half. Well, that happened. And then, as always. That's our show for tonight. Make sure to subscribe and tell us in the comments. Do you think this kind of confrontation is what America needs right now?